Hi everybody, my name's Martin Woodward, and I have with me here Phil Hack. We're going to chat with you today about using Git inside Visual Studio 2015. And I am already doing what I promised the camera lady I wouldn't do when wandering around the stage, but never mind. We're on RoboCams for the live stream, so I'll try and stay reasonably static. Okay, blah, 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 fill out your evals. I'm sure you've heard that a lot already. The managers look at the numbers and we read all the comments, so do leave stuff in the comments. Not only that, if you want to...
His manager.
Yeah, he doesn't have a manager. Feel free to abuse us on Twitter as well. If you want to email me, I'm martinwoo@microsoft.com. You can use me at martinwoodward on Twitter. You can go to my blog if you want to learn more, or if you're really nerdy and Team Foundation Server and Git and all this stuff is what you want to tune into, then you can listen to a podcast to do with a friend of mine, Greg Duncan. So yeah, tune in. It's really hardcore nerdiness. Until very recently, I worked on the Team Foundation Server team, on helping out with some of the version control stuff and the cross-platform tools and the Git stuff and things like that. I recently, this is officially my last ALM talk ever, after 10 years. So, boo, never mind. Oh, yay! Yeah. I'm now help out on the .NET Foundation, so a lot of the open source stuff that we're doing over in the .NET world, I help the team try to do some of that and try and focus on collaboration and innovation inside the .NET Foundation. And thank you. Yeah, I don't do any of the work. I just fill out bits of paper, really, and fill out forms and talk to lawyers. So the team who do all the work and the community. We've got, there's been nearly 2,500 people contributed into .NET already. 38% of pull requests are from outside Microsoft already. So we want more of that contribution. So keep it coming. Here are some of the projects. There will be more to come soon, I promise. I've written a few books. Not that that makes me an expert. It just means I know some clever people, like my friend Phil Hack.
Hi everyone, I'm Phil Hack. I work at GitHub as an engineering manager on the desktop team. We're responsible for GitHub for Mac, GitHub for Windows, and what we announced today, GitHub for Visual Studio. And we're really excited to show you that today.
So as I say, we're going to talk a lot about the Git integration in Visual Studio Online, Team Foundation Server. But as Phil just mentioned, we are going to drill into the GitHub integration that was announced today. And you're the first people in the world to get a demo live. So how about that? That should be quite cool.
Yay.
There we go. If everything goes according to plan, that is. OK, so blah, 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 source control. There are basically three types of source control system in the world. Check-in, check-out model, old school TFS is what you can think about it. Then there's a copy merge model, which is Subversion, or what you'd call a local workspace in newer Team Foundation Server, Team Foundation version control. And then distributed version control, so Mercurial, Git, Veracity, things like that. Git is the one that we picked for various reasons, which we can talk about, but that's another hour-long session. You can come and grab me afterwards. But Git is the one we decided on, and I think we made the right choice.
I think so, too.
Yeah. And it's great for highly modular code bases. It's good for lots of things, but it's very different to centralized version control. It's a slightly different mindset. And I liken it very much to when I first started to learn distributed version control. It was a bit like when I first started to learn object-oriented programming. For a while, my brain kind of needed to rewire itself a little bit and think about version control just a little bit differently. But once I'd done that and got through that curve, I now can't remember not having understood both. You can easily swap back and forth. So yeah. So Microsoft are investing in all three of these modes of version control. Git's the new hotness and what you see us talking about here, but we do keep investing in all three. Right, enough slides. Let's have a quick play. So the first thing I wanted to show you was just getting started. Let's do a quick hands up. Who's using Git already inside their companies? Cool.
Oh, nice.
That's pretty good. So that's about 50%. Who's, say, Git curious? Who's just here to learn a bit more and learn about Git? There you go, another 50%.
Okay.
Who uses Team Foundation version control?
Oh, wow, quite a few.
And then who uses Subversion, Mercurial?
Anyone use Bazaar?
No, there we go.
Yeah,
Oh,
I was like,
yeah,
oh,
yeah,
one
yeah,
guy.
yeah, of course.
Can you imagine if we had picked Bazaar, I'd be working for Bazaar Hub?
Sometimes you think you are, but yeah.
Yeah.
And then, and who doesn't do any version control? Who just zips files and sticks them on a file share? Okay.
Who's willing to admit
Trust
that?
me. I've been doing these talks for 10 years now. That's not the distribution that existed 10 years ago. Version control's got a lot more popular, and a lot more people are using it, and I'm very happy about that. And more people can use it now, thanks to the fact it's built in to every version of Visual Studio, including Visual Studio Community, the free edition of Visual Studio. And you can just come in, do File, New Project, check the Add to Source Control box, and then it says to you, what type of version control would you like? I would like Git, please. And you can get started, and you can start making changes straight away. So I go into my changes screen. I say, initial version. I hit, I can probably spell it correctly, but I'm not going to bother. And I can make that change. I can come in here, do some typing. So you've got no excuse anymore not to use version control, because you can just, come in and just do your changes straight away. So let's say add message. It's easy. You don't need to wait for somebody to set up a server for you. You don't need to do anything. You can just get started and do version control straight away. Now, you can come along, and one of the great advantages of version control, of course, is let's do something here. I'm obviously not from around these parts. I might sound, back home in England, I sound incredibly, northern and stupid, but to Americans, I understand I sound like James Bond a little bit, but that's cool. So, let's just insult you by, I'm just going to localize this into, American English. There we go. Hi, y'all.
I did mistake you for Daniel Craig.
Yeah. Into Daniel Craig, awesome. So I'm going to localize that. I'm going to commit that. I'm going to Advantage of built-in integrated version control inside the IDE is when you do things like forget to save the file, it can prompt you. When you rename things, it can know what you're trying to do. Now, I've done that, and then I realized, that's probably, I'm going to come in here actually and make some comments here. So add comment, and I'm going to do blah, 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 in my commit message. There we go, all done. Now, I realize that hi, y'all is incredibly patronizing, and I probably don't want to ship that. So I need to revert that change. So I can just come down here and do view history. This is the new history view in Visual Studio 2015. And I can just pick a commit I didn't like, that localized one, and I can say, hey, I don't want that change. I want to revert it, please. And if I go back to my program, there we go. It's gone back to hello world. Woohoo! There we go. Source control's awesome. Right then. Back to the deck.
All right. Let me switch it over here.
Yep.
All right, so in this section, I want to talk a little bit about what's happening under the hood. How does Git work? What is going on? Should I be afraid of it? And the answer is no. So history in Git is represented as a series of commits. You probably heard that before. And it's effectively, the way to think about it is a snapshot of your entire project or repository at that point in time. And you might think, oh, that sounds inefficient. But don't worry, Git is really smart about how it does it, because it only needs to know about which files have changed in order to represent your entire history. And you notice that each commit has a, let me walk over here. We tend to visualize these changes as each commit has one or more parents, which is the commit that it was based off of. And I'll explain that in a second. And one interesting aspect of it is that when you clone a repository, you have a full copy of the history. Unlike Subversion or Visual Source Safe for the hosted or whatever. What's the TFS version that?
Visual Studio Online.
Okay. Yeah, that part. With those, you don't have the entire history. You're just checking out files, changing that one file, and committing it in. With Git, you get the whole history, and that's nice. That's what we mean by distributed. So when Bob's working locally on his repository, he's got he can make changes and all that. And what will naturally happen is these repositories will diverge. I will make commit 4 here, and Bob will make commit 5 on his. And at some point, we need to reconcile these things. And so what I can do is run a git fetch operation. And that will actually pull the changes into my repo, but not yet into my branch. And then I might run a git merge. And what git merge does is it creates a new commit that points to the previous commit and the branch I merged, and reconciles all the changes into a new commit. And so this is a commit that just has 2 parents. So you might wonder, well, how are IDs generated? I mean, we obviously can't have a monotonically increasing integer identifier for these, because we'd have to have some sort of central server to distribute these IDs and ideas. So what Git does is it creates a cryptographic hash, SHA-1, of the contents of the commit. And the contents include the parent, like the reference to the parent. Whoops, what did I want to say about that? And one of the benefits of that is that what this creates is a content addressable file system, so that you can address any commit within Git by its ID and know that that hasn't changed. And not only that, a lot of people are worried about. Are you going to talk about that?
Yeah. We'll cover a bit about that.
I was about to spoil his thing.
It's OK.
So Martin is going to show some history improvements in Visual Studio.
OK. So now Phil's introduced you to how the repository is laid out. Let's look at that same graph, but really, in a real Git repository. So I'm just going to come down here and quickly clone the Git repository from, this is one happens to be on Visual Studio Online, so I'm going to connect in and pull it down. I'm just going to hit the sync button just to make sure I've got all my changes locally, just in case I forgot to set the demo up correctly. But no, I'm all good. Great. So if I come in and I go to my changes window, and I'm just going to say, let me just come here and just do view history. Now, here's the same graph that Phil was showing you. Here's that same graph just on its side and pointing up. And that's showing one of the new features in Visual Studio 2015, which is a graphical view of history. So we have that now, and it looks pretty cool. But it means you can actually figure out exactly what's gone on. Who are the parents of which commits, what's actually happened in my history. Now, the thing, as Phil pointed out, the thing with Git is you're making your changes locally. So if I come back in and I actually open up my solution, so handy top tip for you here, if you go to the home page of Team Explorer, it actually queries your Git repository for any solution files that are in that Git repository. And then you can just double click on them, and it'll open up the solution in Visual Studio for you. So I'm going to come in here, and I'm just going to make a quick, make a change. Here we go, change this, whatever. And I'm going to go to Changes window, and I'm going to commit that. A change, there we go. I'm just going to commit it. Now, one little top tip again for you. You see this Changes window here? It can be sometimes annoying, especially when you have lots of screen real estate, that you have to keep going all the way over here to do stuff and blah, blah, blah. If you click that you see there's a little arrow just at the top there? If you click that, you can actually pop out the Changes window, and then you can come down here and say dock it down here if you want to. And then you've always got it available. Now, that's great when you're working on your desktops back home, because you can always have the Changes window there and make commits really easily. When you're doing a demo, it's a pain, because it takes up all the screen real estate. So I'm going to put that back, but let me just let's say dock in Team Explorer. There we go. I'll put it back there. But just let you know you can do that. Right, so I'm going to make a change. We've done that. And then if I go and have a look at my history here, we can see, and I hit refresh, we can see there's the change, and we can double click on it, and we can see there's the commit I've got here. We can come down and into actions, and we can say copy commit ID. We want to paste that unique ID around to one of our colleagues. But if I was to actually go over to the server, here we are, and I go into my code explorer. In fact, if I go to code history, is where I wanted to go to. If we have a look at my Git repository, the last change was last change in the master branch was add data to text file. And if I go back to here, we can see it's not there yet. Why not? And that's because we made the change to our local copy of the repository. We need to push that change back to the server to share it with our team. So it's a check-in, sharing with your team is a two-phase operation with Git. You commit, and then you push those changes. And frequently, you would make multiple commits as you go along. And that's one of the beauties of Git. You can make lots of commits locally, and make sure you've got your workings correctly. Make sure you explain how you want the change to look, and then push those changes to the server. So I'm just going to go over here. I'm going to hit the sync button. And the sync button actually, the sync screen actually tells me, hey, by the way, you've got an outgoing commit here that needs to go, and you haven't, there's none to come back. So you can press the push button, or the easiest button to press is just the sync button. The sync button will go to the server, see if there's any new changes, pull them back down so that you're up to date, merge your change in with those, and then push back the resultants to the server. So that's just a quick way of making sure what you've got is going to go up to the server. So there we go. And then if I go back now over into Team Foundation Server, or Visual Studio Online in this case, and hit refresh, we can see there's our change up on the server. A change, great. There we go. Right, let's talk about, Phil alluded to this, the rewriting history stuff. One of the frequent sort of things we hear from people when we're talking about Git, from the people, you're all thinking, oh, maybe we'll start using Git in our company, and you'll get back home and people, oh, Git's changed. What can I do to raise objections to stop you from making me learn something new? So one of the ones that they'll bring up is, oh, with Git, you can rewrite history. That's not actually true, because as Phil said, each commit is a cryptographic hash ID. You can't rewrite history, but you can create a new history. So there we go. It's, commits are immutable, as Phil was saying, so you can't change them without changing the actual IDs. And what you can do if you want to edit a commit is do a commit amend. So you can edit the previous commit. But if you do that and you just change the message, you keep the file contents the same, and just change your message to correct a spelling mistake, in your commit, it will still change that commit ID. Now, because of that, it's dangerous to publish. If you've already published some changes to the server, and then you try and rewrite your commit and publish it again, that can be quite dangerous to work in a team environment, because people can be working off the commit which you pushed, and they're working off their version, and then you go and push it again, and now master branch no longer has this commit ID, it has another one over here, and so now they've got to try and figure out what's happened and get sorted and do lots of rebasing and things, and that frequently leads to sort of problems in your team if you push stuff that you've changed.
Right, because the effect, like you said, you've pushed an alternative history. I mean, I like to think of Git as sort of this vision of the multiverse brought right into our developer tools.
Yeah. So one of the things that we do in Team Foundation Server and Visual Studio Online is actually if you're rewriting history on the server, if you're trying to say to the server, hey, I'm going to change the view of what happened, that's called a force push. And there are times when you need to force push, but they're rare and shouldn't be something that happens all the time, especially if you're in a team environment. And so we actually give you the ability to control who can force push to a particular branch. And you can define that at the project, at the repository level, and you can actually define that all the way down to the branch level. And notice you have a fine-grained set of permissions over on what you can actually do down at a branch level. So if you want to lock down a branch and make it so nobody can actually push to a branch, or just administrators can push to a particular branch, then you can go and configure that in TFS and Visual Studio Online if you want to. Ryan, we'll talk a little bit about the Git settings. So the other objection I have is security, people can fake your IDs and all this sort of stuff. And the reason why they say that is because in Git, in your local history, the username and the email address associated with each change is actually just it's metadata, And Git is a distributed version control system. So at the point of making the commit, it can't validate that you are who you say you are because you're just local. So it just stores it as text data. And so you can come in and actually you can configure what your username and email address is. We take defaults from your Visual Studio profile or from AD, but they sit in the global settings. You also, as well as in global settings, you have the ability to switch on Gravatar and things like that. But you can go into repository settings as well, and you can override the global settings with settings that are just valid to that single repository rather than your whole machine. That comes in really handy I work for Microsoft. Microsoft own everything I do while I'm working at Microsoft. But occasionally, I might but don't tell my boss, want to pull down a hobby project I was working on at home and maybe just quickly make a change to that hobby project and then push it back up again, just occasionally, while I'm on my work laptop, but away from work, obviously. And if I'm doing that, I want to make sure those commits are going in with my home email address, not my work email address. And so I can come in and I can configure the email address to use for that repository. I can actually go in and configure that if I want to. And there's a bunch of other things you can configure for your repository. Important one is the git ignore, obviously. Mm-hmm. So do you want to talk about, you can talk a bit about git ignore if you want. I mean, it's the, sorry, I'm just going to show the settings quickly. But yeah.
Sure.
There we go.
So if you create a repository using Visual Studio or using GitHub for Windows, for example, it will actually pre-populate.
Or GitHub.com as well. It'll ask you, won't it?
Yeah, or GitHub.com. It'll pre-populate your repository with a git ignore file and a git attributes file. And the git ignore file is important because it tells Git what files to ignore. So for example, you're going to want to ignore your bin directory, your obj directory, all that sort of thing. And the list of git ignores, we have a repository called github/git ignores, and we sort of keep a list of git ignore files for different environments, so you can always contribute to that.
Yeah.
The other file is git attributes. If Git on Windows has often run into this problem of line endings, and I don't like talking about line endings. I just like telling people, set up git attributes, never worry about line endings again, unless you run into an edge case.
So yeah, Visual Studio will do it for you. GitHub for Windows does it for you. GitHub.com does it for you. But if you have just gone to your local machine and got a Git repository, you can go into your repository settings in Visual Studio. And if there isn't a git ignore file or a git attributes file there, you can just press the add link, and it will create one for you. And we use in Visual Studio the same git ignore files and the same git attributes files that are open source on GitHub as part of Phil's project. So we're all trying to use the same ones. And that way, if you contribute to that open source project, you've got a new solution type, or we forgot to add an ignore file that's vitally important for BizTalk 2010 or whatever, because we tend to forget things like that from time to time, even though we're Microsoft. Then you can go in and actually contribute, a thing that should be ignored. And that gets picked up by all the different tools in the ecosystem, which is pretty cool. OK. So I'm just going to quickly demo the commits for you. And I'll show you this thing that people sometimes say about Git and use it as a way you shouldn't use it. And then we'll show them how they're wrong. So if I go back and I go into my Git settings, so if you can come to the home page and click on settings, or you can just come down here and do settings, whatever way you want to do it. So I'm going to go into Git settings, and I'm going to change my global email address. Currently, I'm Martin Woodward, but hey, let's go big. Now, interestingly, I've done this demo in the past, and there's parts of Visual Studio Online, and I can't type and talk at the same time. There's parts of Visual Studio Online now that send notifications. The one that's in particular is when you invite people to join your project. That didn't used to send an invite. And then all of a sudden, we switched on email invites. And all of a sudden, I started getting emails from somebody's PA to say, hey, did you really want him to come and have a look at this code? Are you ready for a Bill G review? And I'm like, no. So let's just update that. I'm going to pretend I'm Bill Gates. And I'm going to come in here, and I'm going to open text file 1. And I'm going to say, I hereby declare that Martin deserves a massive pay rise. Love. Big B. OK. I just hope this isn't being recorded. This could be a potentially career-limiting move. And then I'm going to come in, and I'm going to commit that. Or in fact, what I'll do is I'll show you a handy shortcut. As well as committing it, I can, if I want to, come in here, and I can say leave important message. And I can do a commit and sync or a commit and push in one button in Visual Studio if you wish to. Interestingly, when we analyze some of, we have Visual Studio Online, we do analytics, and you guys have got analytics as well. The average number of commits per push is 1.
Oh, really?
So there we go. So even though you can do lots of commits locally. So I'm going to just commit that and push that up. And so there you go. If I look at history locally, and I'm just going to hit refresh, we can see here, look, leave important message by Bill Gates. Awesome. Martin deserves a pay rise. But then obviously, the point of authentication isn't at the client. The point of authentication is at the server. So if you go over to the server and take a look, you can see Bill Gates has left an important message. But if I actually go click on that commit, we can see that it was actually pushed by Martin Woodward, and notice the highlight on that. So there are times when it is valid for you to push somebody else's changes. Phil might have sent me some of his code, and I might have brought it into my computer and merged it and done some work on it and then pushed it on behalf of both of us. But when you're doing your auditing trails and you're looking through, you can certainly look at these points and go, you know what, Martin, why did you check in? Martin deserves a big pay rise. That's sure that's a little bit dodgy. So there we go. OK, let's talk about branching, Phil.
Cool. Yeah, I'll take that.
Thanks.
All right, so we're going to go back to talking about branches. So one of the things you might hear a lot is that branching is cheap in Git. And how many of you branch often? OK, great. How many of you don't branch often? OK, quite a few of you. So like one of the common things I hear when I talk to people who use Subversion or things like that is
and Team Foundation version control as well.
And Team Foundation, I didn't want to.
It's OK. Yeah.
You guys have been a gracious host. I'm trying to be nice. But yes, when you use Team Foundation version control, it's also a mouthful, and I don't have enough time to say it all. But if you use that for branching or Subversion, the thing is like what you'll often hear people say is, I don't need branching, so why would I care if they're cheap? And often it's like one of those things is, well, the reason you don't need branching is because it's so painful in these systems that you've assimilated that pain, and kind of like the dog who sort of hinges away from the newspaper, like you don't do it. But the thing about Git is that branching is simply a pointer. Like you can actually go into the .git directory, and you'll go into the branches or the refs directory, and you can actually see that it's just this little text file that has the SHA, the ID of the commit, and the name of the branch, and that's all a branch is. So when you create a new branch off your existing code, all it did was add a new text file with the name of the branch and the SHA of the commit that you're creating the branch off of. That's it. It doesn't need to do this. Subversion does a full copy, and you sit there, and if you have a really large repo, you're just sitting there waiting for it to copy every single thing over to this other folder. But in Git, it's just a pointer, and that's why you can see here we have head, which is sort of an implicit branch. That's your current. That always points to the tip of your current branch. In this case, that branch also has a tag name, or that label named mine. And then we have Bob's branch, which is down here at the bottom. And so I make another commit. Head always tracks the tip again, and so it moves forward. Your current branch also tracks the tip, so that mine moves forward. But we see that obviously we didn't create a commit on Bob's branch, so that stayed where it was.
Shall I just quickly explain the difference between TFVC branches? And yeah, so for people who are using Team Foundation version control, for you guys, you're used to branches being in path space. They're a thing in the repository that you can see. It's like a folder, but it's called a branch. And this is what the code would typically look like in TFVC. Now, TFVC, branches are cheap, and branches are quite easy to do, both in Git and in TFVC. It tends to be merging that's complicated. And merging is extra complicated in a tool like TFVC or Subversion or anything that does path-space branching, because when you merge, you tend to not only be merging the files, and fixing all the changes, but you're also changing the location of where they are, and often that changes the location of where they are on disk. So you might have your master branch might be on one part of the same disks, and your V2 branch might be on the same, different part of the disk, and so you have to close down your solution and open your solution back up again and jump around, and it can be quite painful. So in TFVC, you see them there. This is the same code. So this is in TFVC. This is the same code in Git. And in Git, branches are still there, but now they're represented across the entire repository. So they're not in path space. They're repository-wide, because they're just a pointer to a commit, just a pointer in time. And that's why they're very cheap. And it also means when you switch branches, it switches your working set locally. So your files locally are now the instance of that they were on that branch. And in Git workflows, it's very, very common to be branching and switching between feature branches, and that because it's such a lightweight thing, it's a very common thing to do in the workflow. And because of that, we wanted to make it, I'll just recap what I just said, blah, blah, blah. There we go. Because of that, we wanted to make it very lightweight. So that's what we did inside Visual Studio. So I'm just going to quickly show you that, and then we'll talk about labels.
Yeah. So these set that up, like one of the things I was telling someone today at the booth was that, with Subversion or something, so I've been through the whole gamut. I started with Visual Source Safe, I moved to Source Gear Vault, and then I went to CVS, Subversion, what was after Subversion?
TFVC, or who's probably an internal
Mercurial
thing in
and
Microsoft.
Git.
Yeah.
And the thing with Git is that, like, because branches are so cheap, there's no excuse not to have a branch per every feature or bug fix that you're doing so that you can work on that change in isolation. When you're working on a shared branch, what often happens is that changes are coming in that are unrelated to the work you're doing, and you have no idea if, like, the change you just made broke things because you broke things or because these incoming changes that are constantly coming in did it. So I end up, even if I'm working alone on a project, I end up creating a lot of different branches, a branch for every little feature or bug fix that I do.
Cool. So I'm just going to quickly make a change here in the master branch and hit commit. So I've done that. And then if I go over and I'm going to make another change, and I realize I don't want to do this in master. I want to create a feature branch for this because it's going to take me a little while. I can hit save even here, but I can come over into my branches and I can say, I would like a new branch, please. So new local branch from master, and I'm going to call this feature, if I can spell feature C, probably. There we go. I'm going to create the branch. And then I'm going to come in, and I'm now on feature C. You see it's highlighted there? And I'm going to make a change. I'm going to say make another change in feature C. There we go. Yeah, save that. And I'm going to go to my changes view, and I'm going to commit it. Change in feature C. There we go. I'm going to commit that. And now when I go back to the branches view, and if I swap to master, now anybody knows what, I'm just going to swap to master. You ready? Look, it just changes. You don't get any of that Visual Studio, files changed underneath me and I don't know what happened, And it gives you like 5 options in a dialog box, and you never know which one to pick, and it's usually the middle one, is what I really like, fish called wonder. Yeah. There we go, whatever. Yeah, feature B hasn't got it, feature C, look at this, super easy. Hey, if you think that's impressive, watch this, you ready? I'm going to jump to the command line. Let's just make that a little bit bigger for you, sorry. Wow, I was already pretty big. Here we go, let's go with 18, there we go. No, let's go a bit bigger. Apologies. There we go, 24. We should be able to read that. There we go, look at that. Okay, so I'm here on the command line. This is in Posh Git. This is the best way to do command line Git. A guy called Keith Dalby, who's an MVP, looks after Posh Git along with the community. It's awesome. It's the main reason why you should use PowerShell, in my opinion. It's just brilliant. And so I can just say the command to, rather confusingly when you're learning Git, the command to swap branches is called checkout. So I'm going to do git checkout, and I'm going to go, which branch am I on right now? Hang on a second. So I'm on master. So I'm going to say feature C, like that. Git checkout feature C. Hit return. Look at this. Do you see that? Do you see Visual Studio? It went bold. I'm on feature C now. And I'm going to do the same thing here. And go back to master. Master. He just did it. Isn't that amazing? Magic. And even better, it does that with whatever Git tools you're running. So if you're using SourceTree from Atlassian, if you're using GitHub for Windows, if you're using a command line, if you're using some crazy Git tool you've invented yourself, it keeps in sync and just keeps aware of what you're doing. So you can swap and change from different Git tools, and it should all just magically work, is the theory.
I didn't know you guys had fixed that. That alone makes me really happy. Like, I hate when Visual Studio screams at me because I'm working.
Yeah. Well, look at this as well. You can do git checkout. So if you want to create a branch at the same time as doing it, so I'm going to create another branch called can't type. There we go. It does that, and it updates stuff. And look, it did it, and it created it in here. It's just magic. So there we go. Right then. I can't take any credit for that. I just think it's amazing. Okay. Right, so yeah, I went off on a complete tangent then. Sorry about that, Phil. Right, let's go back to the deck and we'll talk about tags quickly.
All right. So tags are interesting. Tags are basically they're a pointer to a commit, much like branches, but they just don't move, right? So this is a good way to create a tag for a release. If you ever use the releases feature on GitHub.com, you can actually create a release that points to a specific commit, and we'll automatically create a tag for you. Or we'll look at your tags, and we'll create a release for you from that tag. And so highly recommend using it to, like, the typical use for tags is, releases, right? To say, like, this is the one that we deployed. You might create a tag to say this is the one we deployed to this specific environment. And the idea there is that, the tags never change, unlike the tip of the branch, which is always moving along with you. So you can see there, we create a new commit, tag stays the same. I don't have a lot to say about tags.
Yeah, well, I just wanted to show you, the new thing we did is, I was just busy adjusting my email address back to Martin Woodward before Bill got any emails. There we go, martin@microsoft.com. The thing I did want to show you is previously creating tags from Visual Studio. It was a very easy operation. It was to go to the console and type the command in. So the way that you do it, you can do it several different ways, but probably the easiest way is to just come over here and let's just do, you can actually right-click anywhere and do source control view history. There we go. And then you can just go, you can right-click in history and you can say create tag. Look at that, it's amazing. And you can type a tag in, VU1.3, and hit create tag. Now notice tags are just pointers to a commit, and as Phil said, that's all they are. You can create another version of a tag if you wish and have it point to a different pointer. So it's important to remember that tags that aren't signed are not immutable. You know what I mean? They're just pointers. OK, let's do merges. How you do that? Merges is Phil merges. So there we go.
OK, so let's talk about merge. I think I talked about a little bit about this.
Yeah.
But here's an example where we have, wait, didn't I already talk about this?
Yeah, there we go, merging two commits. Yeah, here, it was
fast
because
forward.
of this.
Oh, yeah, right. OK, so I won't repeat that part. So typically when you do a merge commit, like this is what you get if you ever use GitHub and so you want to merge someone's branch or pull request in, you hit the green button. We create a new merge commit that points to the two parents. But there's an alternative that you can use in, if you're using the command line, which is fast forward. And here's a case where Bob or whoever created, let's call her Alice now. Alice created a commit off of AAB6F14. It's really hard to talk about commits because they are SHAs. And we decided that we want to merge this commit in, but we noticed that like our branch hasn't diverged from that point. We didn't make any new commits on our branch, so we can just basically fast forward what we call a fast forward operation. We can just say, hey, since there's no changes there's no other history to reconcile, we can just move the pointer to the tip, and now we've merged the branch. So again, this is yet another reason why merges are often very cheap or very easy. Git is really good at figuring out when we can just fast forward, and it's also very good at figuring out how to merge one or more heads.
And the reason why it's really good at figuring that out is because with distributed version control, the entire repository is local. And so as a version control programmer, you can do crazy operations you would never have dreamed of doing on the server when you're trying to massive scale, because you're actually distributing that load out to your clients. So you can do all sorts of analysis of the trees. You can do deep inspection, try and do the right thing, because you've got all the data you need to do that locally.
All right, so the next thing I want to talk about is rebasing. Now, rebasing often, like when I talk about rebasing with people new to Git, I start to glaze over. They're like, oh, what are you talking about? Why would I ever want to do this? The way I like to think about rebasing is, I think we need a better term for it. It's like, what is the
It sounds like a term invented in San Francisco, doesn't it?
yeah, exactly. When you work with trees and you graft one branch onto another tree, and then you grow a whole new species or a new plant. In my view, I almost want to call it grafting, right? And this is the way I think about rebase. So here we have an example where we have a branch that's actually diverged, right? So we have 2 commits on Bob's branch, and then 1 commit on mine that are not in the same line of history. And at this point, I'm working locally, and I think I want to, instead of creating a new commit and merging Bob's, a lot of Git users really like to have a linear, clean history. And I thought, what would the world look like if Bob hadn't created his branch off of AA, but instead, had created off of 8B? Like, what would that history look like? And when you can run a rebase command that effectively does something like this.
We spent ages on that animation. But
Yeah, let me do it again.
that was basically all last night.
Okay.
It was awesome.
Woo!
We're not from marketing, as you may have noticed.
Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah. We were impressed when we did that.
And so what's effectively happening is that we've taken these two commits that Bob made on his branch, and we've replayed them. And when you look at the output, you notice it says, oh, replaying these commits off this, and there's a bunch of text, and you have no idea what it all means. That's really all it's doing, is it's just taking those commits and kind of putting them at the end of your tree, replaying the changes. But because the parent has changed, you know that the IDs have changed. So this is an alternate history. And so like if you haven't pushed, if you've already pushed these changes, then you'll have to do a force push, and you run all the risks inherent in doing that. But if you haven't done that, if you haven't pushed these changes up yet, then this is a perfectly fine operation to do locally to clean up your history, and then you can just push this to your branch.
Cool. So let's have a look at that then. If I jump over here. Beautiful. So one of the best things, again, about the Git integration in Visual Studio is, doing branching is really easy. But to be honest, once you know the command, git checkout, it's fairly easy to do that from the command line. Merging, I can never remember how to do from the command line. And I've had occasions where I was doing some code, I hack around on Raspberry Pis and stuff like that. So I was doing some Python code. I've been using the Python tools a bit in Visual Studio. I'd also been using a bit of Notepad and a bit of Visual Studio Code to hack around. And then I wanted to do a merge of a branch. I was like, oh man, how do I do that? And so I know, and I just ended up firing up Visual Studio just because it was so much easier to do the merge for me, especially when I know I needed to actually, when I was going to have a conflict in that merge, and I'll show you why I like it so much. So I come into here, and I'm just going to, let's just check which branch I'm on. So I'm currently on the master branch. So if I go and I go create a new branch from master, let's do that first. So let's just make sure we've got everything saved, yep. And we're going to say new local branch from master, and we'll call it make a feature D. Here we go. Feature D. There we are. Create branch. Super. And then I'm going to make some changes. Change 1. Change 2. And then let's come down here and do change 3. Perfect. And I'm going to save that. And then I'm going to go back to master and pretend while I was making those changes, he says, go back to master. Oh no, I didn't commit. Oh, sorry. Okay, it warned me. Oh no, hang on a minute. I don't know, I've crossed the streams. Right, I'm gonna hit save. I'm gonna go over here. I'm gonna go to changes, and I'm gonna make those 3 changes in master. That's what I intended to do, wasn't it? So changes in master. And I'm going to do a commit. And then I'm going to go back to my feature D. Oh, that's right, because I was switching between the wrong branch there. So I'm going to go back into feature D, and I'm going to make some different changes in feature D. So I'm going to do a change here, here, one here, and then one here. And then I'm also going to change a file that we didn't touch. So let's go touch this text file, and let's get rid of the Bill Gates declaration. So I've got those 2 things, and I'm going to go back to my changes screen, and I'm just going to say, yeah, looks good. Fix feature C. Oh, one of the things I should mention, actually, if you want to associate with a work item, and this is true for Team Foundation Server or indeed GitHub, if you just do like pound, 66 or something like that, I'm going to do pound 1, hopefully work item 1 will exist. That'll actually, when you push that to the server, it'll actually associate that commit with that work item or with that issue in GitHub. And again, that's a common thing you can do there. So we're just going to do that. So I'm going to commit that. And so we got those. And then, so now what I want to do is merge those great changes I did. I'm going to merge them back into the master branch. So I'm going to go over into Team Explorer. I'm going to go to branches. and I'm going to say, I can never get this right way around, merge from, no, I knew I'd get it the wrong way around. I'm going to jump to master, and I'm going to say merge from, and I'm going to merge from feature D, no, there we go, feature D, into master, hit merge. Now this is going to be good. So I do that, and now you get, conflicts happened. And you go, oh no.
Relax.
Relax, because what you do is you come in here. First of all, you don't see, if we go to changes, you're not seeing in my conflicts view the change that worked. It's just text file 2 that's got the conflict, and it even highlights here for you which file is in conflict. So because I hadn't changed one of the, it only shows me the files, that I changed in both branches. And even then, hang on a second, conflict. There we go. Even though it only shows me those files, it'll actually, it'll do its best to try and auto-merge for you. If you're messing around in different parts of the file, it'll do its best to actually merge those two things together. But we come in here and we'll hit the merge button. We've got all sorts of other options, but I normally just press this big merge button here. And look at this, graphical merge in the IDE. Woo! There we go. Now, obviously, with a text file, you don't get a lot of IntelliSense, but you get all the IntelliSense in C# and Java that you would expect. You can come in here and you think, actually, I wanted that one and that one, but actually, I one here and 2 here. There you go. So you can come and you can hit that, and then you can hit accept merge, and it does it, and you've got it. And then once you've reserved your conflicts, there's a reason why it leaves this commit merge button here for you. You want to actually make sure that you come in and you say, merge feature D into master. And I'm going to hit commit, and I'm going to hit commit and sync, because I'm just going to push all those changes back up to the server. See, there we go. Well, I haven't changed my address. Oops, never mind. There we go. Right then. And then if I quickly come in and look at history, then source control, come in here, source control, view history. You'll be able to see there's the history on feature D. And if I go over to branches and I look at master and I do view history, there we go. You can see, what complicated history of lots of pretty graphs and things. And if you want to make it look simple again, then you can, and it kind of flattens it out for you as well. So, cool. I know, I forgot. I'll show you why. So the question was, why does it still think I'm Bill Gates? A, because the computer knows I'm awesome. But mostly it was because I came in here and I typed my name in, but then annoyingly,
you forgot to click update.
I forgot to press update. So what it does is it, there we go. When you press the update button, it's actually persisting that into a Git settings file that, again, every other Git client or every other Git application on the machine uses. So that's why it makes you press the update button, and I forgot. We should probably have a, you've edited this, would you like to save thing? There we go. Let's log that as a feature. I'll not show you Rebase because I want to give Phil plenty of time to show GitHub, but I'll show you where it is. And also, it's reasonably hard to understand sometimes. But if I come in and I look, if I go back to the history view, you can, if I go back to branches view. Again, back in Visual Studio 2013, Rebase was again incredibly easy. It's go to PoshGit and type the Rebase command, and then use Vim to try and do all the stuff you need to do. What could be harder than that? And then try and get out of Vim, which is always a good one as well. Yeah. Anyway, and then what you can do here is you can just right-click and you say Rebase onto now, and it does the rebase for you. So that's pretty awesome. Right, I'm going to jump back over to the deck just quickly and show you just to quickly talk. When you're working in a team, one of the things you want to do is rather than always checking into master, that can work, but quickly you'll find you're always having to resolve conflicts and things. What's a good practice is to use feature branches and then actually issue what's called a pull request to say, hey, I am doing this feature. Can I have a code review of it, please? Can I review that this is a good thing to do? And so that's typically in a large team. We have it TFS configured so that we only allow check-in to merge into master, a push to master as a result of a pull request. So that means that we enforce code review and we can enforce branch policies, which is what I'm about to show you now. And that's the best practice, as I say, that we found inside Microsoft when we're doing Git with larger teams. Is that the sort of same thing you see as well?
Mm-hmm.
Yep, I'm going to do, so what I'm going to quickly show you here, again, to do it super duper quick, I'll do a new feature in TFS 2015, which is I'm going to come in and I'm on master, and I come in here, and I'm going to say console application, text file 2, and I'm going to look at this. This feature's in TFVC and in Git in TFS 2015. I'm going to press edit. And you know that fancy editor you saw yesterday, Visual Studio Code? Well, the same kind of editor controls in here as well, inside Visual Studio Online. So I can make a change, and then I'm going to save it, and I'm going to commit it to a new branch. And I'm going to come in, and I'm going to say feature F or whatever. I'm going to say create a pull request as well, hit commit, and that actually creates a pull request for me. So this is awesome if you want to just quickly do a hello world, that sort of thing. And you can come in here and you can see your pull requests. So there we go.
Very cool.
Right then, and then the pull request is actually, I'm going to hit create pull request for you quickly. And then, go in here and I can leave a comment. Looks good. I can set some reviewers if I wanted to. I can say I want Phil to review it or whatever. I can look at the code that's changed and I can say, you know what, WTF or whatever. And the good thing is, and again, not that I'm particularly, again, you can probably tell I worked on some of this stuff. Notice the arrow points to the middle of the thing you highlighted that had changed. You have no idea how long that took to do. OK. And then we come in here. Notice what's also happening is while my pull request's happening, it's actually this thing was set up for continuous integration builds. So it's actually doing a CI build at the same point as my pull request is going on. And it's going to check if my pull request is a valid build or not. And it will report back if the build was successful. What you can actually do is go into version control settings and go to version control and branch policies. So I'm going to go to build demos, master. And this is a new feature. Again, never before shown inside Visual Studio Online or TFS. It should be enabled hopefully in the next week or two, depending how we go with deployments. It wasn't a great day for VSO today, so maybe 2 or 3 weeks. You can come in here and you can actually configure your branch policies and say you want a build request to happen. You can say the merge cannot happen if the build doesn't succeed, and you can actually require code reviewers. Perfect. Right, Phil, let's talk about, there we go, sorry.
I got it.
Yep, cool.
All right, so how many of you use GitHub here? Okay, how many of you contribute to open source? Great. So at GitHub, we believe that open source is an amazing model. It's every company's using it now, including Microsoft, right? And we really like that way of working. And so we're trying to build tools that help people, even in the enterprise, work in this manner. And so when I joined GitHub, so I used to work at Microsoft. When I joined GitHub, one of my goals that I set for myself is to help C# be one of the top 10 languages on GitHub. And I did it! Woo! Yeah!
Well done, you.
Yeah, all me, me, yes. So you can see here, this is githut.something.io, but anyways.
GitHut.
GitHut.info. And so you can see here that C# just made the top 10 according to this set of stats. And it was interesting because my goal was sort of impeded when we recently made CSS one of a distinguished language. And you know what? A lot of people use CSS. Here you can see this langpop.corger.nl chart, and it shows C# is up in the top right corner there. C# is doing really well. And so maybe I can't take all the credit for getting C# into the top 10 at GitHub. You can see here, this is an internal graph that I asked someone from my analytics team to produce. And when Microsoft officially joined GitHub around January, February-ish, you can see that there's this bit of a spike. And it would be really interesting to see how that plays out in the long run. But a lot of interest in C# on GitHub.
And F# as well.
And F#. Yeah, and I'm using C# as a proxy for the .NET community as a whole just because I'm lazy. And here we see the number of unique pushers to repositories that are primarily C#. We can see here, this graph really blew me away because I did not expect this. But this is the comparison of the rate of change for people pushing to C# repositories month to month, C# compared to the overall GitHub community. And so you can see that C# a lot of times people have felt like, oh, the C# open source community is kind of this stepping child, and it's not like a real open source community. But you can see here that according to our stats, C# is really strong on GitHub.
So thank you, everybody out there. Thank you.
And we're neck and neck with Java here. So let's push that little red line above that green line there. So as you may have heard, today we announced that GitHub is fully integrated in Visual Studio 2015. I have a few minutes. I'll give a quick demo, a run-through of it. And can you switch me?
Yep.
All right. Let's see how fast I can do this. OK. So I'm going to walk through sort of the scenario that you might use to get it. So after you install Visual Studio 2015, oh, do I have the installation slides?
Yep. Let me bring those up for you quick.
Oh, yeah. Sorry, I want to talk about.
Yeah, it's OK.
First, before I go into it, I want to talk about how do you get this.
OK.
So,
go on, next one.
OK. So first of all, you can go to the Visual Studio extension gallery from within Visual Studio, or you can go to this URL, which just redirects you to the gallery. And you can download and install it from there. It's a V6. But it's also available as part of the installation process. So if you were one of the few people who customize your install, so I've helpfully put some arrows there so you know where to click. That brings you to this screen where you're going to check on that entry, the most valuable entry to check. The red arrows are not in the actual install experience. Yeah, I know. I was like, can I have that? And they said, no.
These UI designers. So.
Yeah. So that's how you get it. So you may already have it. And if you don't, it's really easy. In fact, I want to show you real quickly. If you go to Tools, Extension, and Updates.
Sorry, wrong screen. How was it?
Oh, yeah.
That was my fault.
You can see that we've already had 2 updates in the span of this conference. So
they're agile.
We're agile, yeah. OK, so all right, so we got a blank solution. Where is GitHub? OK, it's in Team Explorer. And you can see here that I'm going to zoom in right there. We got the Octocat, so you know a familiar character. Click Connect. And that brings up the login dialog. If you've ever used GitHub for Windows, it kind of looks familiar. If you use GitHub Enterprise, which we just announced that GitHub Enterprise is available on Hyper-V and on Azure. So if your company uses GitHub Enterprise, you can log in and connect right there. Because I have too much access, I'm going to use fake hacked account. And whoops. And because I am a I practice good security, I use 2-factor authentication.
Now, in Microsoft, all our Git committers who are contributing to GitHub and things, we all enforce 2-factor authentication because it's a good thing to do. And so the integration with 2-factor auth inside Visual Studio has been is a boon for us in terms of getting connected. And then when it works.
Oh, boy. That's going to really kill the demo if I can't connect.
I can show you if you wish.
No. Oh, yeah. So I don't have an Ethernet connector on my thing. Can I just borrow yours?
Yeah. There you go.
Jeez.
Better earlier.
All right. Let's see if that helps. Does it need to install anything? Oh, look at these little green bars.
OK, let's jump onto mine. I'll do it.
No. OK.
You sure? Yep.
OK, while he sets that up, I'll try it one more time just to see if,
We'll jump back to yours. So what I'm going to do quickly here for you is go to it's the plug experience. And I was currently connected to GitHub, but I'll just come in again and I'll do connect to GitHub. And I'll do my username, which is mine's. I don't have enough access, so I'm Martin Woodward. And then I'm going to try and remember my GitHub password. And I'm going to hit login. And then I typed my GitHub password in wrong. So this is where the demo fails at the first go. But it's a really easy 2-factor auth experience. And then I'm going to run over here, grab my phone. In fact, I'll do one more time. Have you got it working yet?
No,
okay,
I don't
demo
have.
fail.
Let me try a different Wi-Fi.
OK, here we go.
Anybody have a MiFi nearby? Let's see. Let's try this network.
There we go. Right then. Now then, I'm using the Microsoft Band. So any moment now, woohoo, your GitHub authentication code has arrived on my Microsoft Band. How awesome is that? So I'm going to come in here and type this in. Now I'm going to do this super secure. So everybody look the opposite direction. There we go. Luckily, it's a one-time factor, so you can't use that again. And that's me connected. Now, if you've done that experience previously, you would know just exactly how getting 2-factor auth set up could be quite tricky. So that's great that that's done. And then what you can do, come in straight here. You can just hit clone. and then I can come in and clone a repository that I might have up on GitHub. So I'm going to quickly clone, what should we go for? We better not go for the core CLR. That takes a little time. So I'm going to go for this library here, Martin Public. There we go, hit clone. And then they'll just bring that down, and it says it's not failed, so I'm going to do it again, hit clone. And I can come in and pick whatever particular library I want, and I'm going to use the one I've already prepared earlier, just in case, which is the OSS Awesomeness Tabulator. So we have these figures which give us stats on how awesome our open source is, and this is the code behind that. So I open that up as a solution. And you notice when it comes in, it gives you your handy little, it shows you it's a GitHub repository here. It'll show you if it's a fork. That's right, isn't it, Phil, as well?
Yep.
And then hopefully while we're doing that, we've recovered the demo over on the other screen. So there we go. We just quickly, you ready to go?
Yeah, let's do it. So you remember when I was showing you the updates and I was like, oh, look how cool it is. We had 2 updates. I probably should have updated. So that's what I did, and now I'm logged in. Since he already showed you, I won't do that. But I'm going to go through this whole process of, OK, I'm creating a blank solution. I'm going to just try out some code. I don't know if I want to share this with anyone or not, so I create a blank solution. What happened? Oh.
You create a blank solution.
Oh, yeah, create a blank solution, but I'm not. OK, so I didn't mean to do that. But we'll add a new project. And let's create a Silverlight application. I know, am I just like sticking the finger in the rib right there by doing that? OK, and so we're going to go to Team Explorer, Changes View. So I always forget how to do this. So you can tell he uses this a lot more than I do. There we go.
It's because it's new. It's only just come out.
I know. Wait. I can't seem to. OK, here we go. I like the 2-column layout.
Yeah.
See, adaptive design. Very cool. So, always create a meaningful commit message, OK? Because people read history. There's a lot of history buffs. So create that. So one of the cool things is now we go back to the wait, it was right. It's just a little slow. So we go back to the home page. You notice that we show you the repo. If this is a private repo, we'll show you the private icon. This is a local-only repo. So I don't know why it's still showing Octa. Oh, it's
because where you created your solution file.
Oh, is that it?
Yeah. You probably don't want to publish to OctoKit.
No, how do I go back to?
I'll quickly try for you.
Yeah, sure.
The Microsoft Expert. So here's a different one we'll do. We'll come in File, do New Project just quickly, and we'll say we'll go for a Silverlight application 2, but we'll put it in a different folder.
Let me type, because my keyboard's Dvorak.
Yeah. Phil sets his keyboard to Dvorak, especially so other people can't do what I just did, because he doesn't like people touching his machine.
There we go. OK, so initialize.
Yeah.
Sorry about that. So here we go. Click Sync. So this is a local-only repo, and you notice that GitHub's right there. You can easily publish to there. People are going to ask, what is this? When I choose this, and we'll hit Publish. And then I can go to github.com, fake hacked, and we can see that my Silverlight application is up there.
Woohoo! I'm going to go and star it right now. There we go.
Yeah, so it's the easiest way to go that. So we're about running out of time, so I'll really briefly show you a couple more things. You can also click Create. This will create a repository locally and push it to GitHub all in one flow. And one more cool thing. If you've installed the extension and you've logged in, and you're logged in on github.com, if you go to repo, let's check out maybe a repo that's not one you own. Let's check out OctoKit. This is we use OctoKit to interact with the GitHub API. Check this out down here. What do you see here?
Ooh.
Let me zoom in. We added an Open in Visual Studio button. So that button will only show up if you've logged into the extension and you're logged into github.com, because it's the only way we know that you have the proper application. And so when I click this, let me zoom out. Oops. Yeah, you see that it's an external protocol request. Chrome is asking if I really want to do this. I say yes. And it launches Visual Studio 2015, pre-populates the clone dialog with all the right information, throws an exception. I don't know what that is, but hit clone. And I've just cloned OctaKit directly from GitHub right into my machine. I can start,
and all your credentials are all set up, all that permissions.
Oh yeah, yeah. And we use this when you log in. The beautiful thing about when you log in with the GitHub extension, we're storing the credentials in the Windows credential store, the same one that the Git functionality is using within Visual Studio. So what that means is, you don't have to go and create a OAuth token to use two-factor auth, that sort of thing. I may have picked the wrong repository to do with this Wi-Fi, but you can see that it's working. You can trust me that that will eventually finish, and you will have OctaKit on the machine. Thank you very much.
Thank you. OK, we're out of time. So I'll hang around for questions, and then, or you can just abuse us on Twitter. There you go, for forgetting my password. Thank you very much for your time.